You're now on the edge of the Port Hills, and some very different impacts were experienced here from the earthquakes. Steve, can you tell us about those?
Sure, the Canterbury earthquake sequence have had very high peak ground accelerations.
What do you exactly mean by that?
Well, as we're all aware, we are held on the Earth by the force of gravity. So if I drop this rock, gravity pulls it to the ground. The peak ground accelerations involved in the earthquake were very strong and up to 2 times the force of gravity. That meant for some of the rocks on the Port Hills, the earthquakes literally pushed them off the Port Hills. And so they then ran down the slope. And obviously with people living in houses and driving cars below them, this was a very real hazard. So this little picture here describes the hazard for us. It's from the Christchurch City Council. Here it shows the bluff. The rocks come off the bluff, roll down the hill and end up being located amongst the houses. A number of houses in this location and others on the Port Hills suffered a lot of harm from the boulders hitting the houses, and obviously that's a big concern.
Looking behind us, you can see just how big some of these boulders are. So looking behind us here, you can see just how big some of those rocks are. Steve, how does geospatial technology help with identifying the risk of these rocks?
Well, geospatial technologies like GPS and GIS and mapping have been extremely important, because what they've helped us to do is actually identify where the rocks have come from, how the rocks have moved and bounced down the hill, where the rocks have ended up, and where rocks that are, and doing a study on those things, we can look at the rocks that are still on the hill and make projections about where they might end up. So what we have done is we've sent out, the Christchurch City Council and Sarah and other groups have sent out surveyors right across the Port Hills, and they've used iPads with GIS and GPS technologies to capture the locations of those rocks. This picture here is a screenshot from one of those iPads which shows the type of data that can be entered, and within that we can identify the location of the rock, its size, how it's orientated, its likelihood to fall. All of these features can be captured to allow us to identify the risk of whether it's going to move again. That's extremely important. So when we look at this picture here, you can see the green dots are all the rocks that have moved or are likely to move if there's another major event. You can see that there are houses within close distance to these rocks, and that's a major problem. So what the Christchurch City Council has done is they've captured all of the loose rocks which we think are likely to move in the next possible event. And with that, the council looks at the rock, they look at whether or not they can remove the rock, so bowl it down the hill. Sometimes they have a lot of fun and they blow the rock up, that's pretty exciting. And other times they might actually re-anchor the rock to the hill, which is where they might put a netting over it and then tie it back to the hill with anchors, so that if there is another event, that rock doesn't move. So looking at all those mitigation measures to either remove or secure the rocks, the next step is to say, well, how many rocks have left? What's the likelihood that rocks will actually come down and hit their houses again? So the council has worked very hard in conjunction with GNS and other scientists and many technical specialists in this area, and what they've done is they've produced hazard maps. What this picture is showing us is a hillside. The lines show the contours of which way the hill is falling, and what we've done is we've superimposed on top some houses and some rocks that would have likely have come off these bluffs. You can see the different shapes on this contour map, and the different colours highlight the level of danger and risk to the people that are living below. So obviously red is an extremely high risk level, yellow is moderate risk down to green, blue, and then once you move off the bottom of the shaded area, that's where it's deemed that there is no risk because the rocks wouldn't reach that far.
Right, so that map there is a great example of GIS, a Geographic Information System, a whole lot of information on one map that can inform decisions about where to build in the future. You might like to take a look at the GNS site because they've got some cool videos about how they've dealt with some of the rockfall danger and what they've done to get rid of some of those rocks, so check that out.